he's going to be coming and delivering the word of God to you guys this week.
Hey, it's good to be with you. I'm so excited to be able to share God's word with you throughout the rest of the week. And I thought by beginning tonight, we're not going to jump right into the message. I've got a quiz for you. Yeah, some of you have heard me speak before. You know I've taken some quizzes I've stolen from a good friend of mine named Matt Sauter, who years ago taught me a few of these. This one's my own. And what the quiz is you're going to see a picture. And then you're going to have to guess who that caricature celebrity is. And then we will bring in the name. So, like, the first picture would be... Alright, next one. It's also known as... Alright, next one. Yes, no one break up with her. The greatest or not? No! Alright, next. Tom Hanks. Good, anybody? Bill Murray. Alright, next one. You guys are doing pretty well. We got Rihanna. Anyone guys forget Rihanna? Good job. I thought that was a scream from a section of the population. Alright, next one. There's Connie. One person. Who got Megan Fox? Nobody, right? I thought Megan Fox would be one of the more difficult ones. We have some hard ones coming up. Not this one, but from my age. She's now 62. No. Is it that? That's the bees. Anyone? A couple more. It's a tough one. Alright, and I think the final one is Mr. Bean. I think those are fun. Well, listen, my name is John, and I am the superintendent of Wabash Conference. I imagine that many of you are connected with some of our Free Methodist churches in Indiana and Illinois. And I give oversight to all of your pastors, to all of the churches. It's not interesting to you, but that is what I do. And I'm excited to be with you this week. We are going to be looking at a topic called transformation and what it means to actually experience change that God brings in your life. And I'm not going to go super deep tonight into our theme, but I want you tonight to be prepared for this week. You guys excited about this week? Yeah. opportunity this week to hear from the Lord. And I want to prepare your hearts tonight by talking about what I hope that you get out of this week and how you will prepare yourself to hear from God this week. Because you can go through this week, you can enjoy the time, you can play the games, you can meet new people, have good friends, meet new friends, and at the end of the week, all of that is good, but you would have not accomplished what God wants you to accomplish unless you hear from God this week. That'll change your life. And camp and camping ministries are about getting away from our normal lives, normal activities, in order to hear from God. And in this place, Wabash Park Campground, we have a saying that we can hear the whisper of God here. That we can hear God whisper to us. But I want you to be prepared for that. How many of you, this is your first time at Wabash Park Camp? Okay, a few of you. How many of you, this is your first time at any camp? Like, this is it? Yeah, good. A couple of you? Okay, this is great. So you have no idea what to expect, right? That's all right. How many of you have been here at least 2-3 times, right? There, all right, there you go. So you all know what to expect. Let me tell you about one of my first experiences at camp. I was about in 4th grade, and I was sent off to our camp up in Michigan. I had never been to camp before. I had never been away from the family for that long, and went to the camp and met my counselor, and we were part of a cabin, and we had 6 to 8 guys in that cabin. There was a lake at the campground that I was a part of, and so we were down by the lake, and we were swimming and having fun, and they got us out of the water, and they said, okay, you have some free time, go ahead and take a break. So I started to kind of wander around the beach and just talk to people, and suddenly I felt this drop in my gut. Something had to happen pretty quickly. And it was the first time I had ever been to that campground. I didn't know where to go. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I don't want to just flat out tell you. So let me give you some euphemisms. You know what a euphemism is? Yeah. Euphemism is a phrase for something else. So someone give me a number between 1 and 68.
54.
32. All right. 32. I had to go offload some freight. Someone give me another number between 1 and 68. Number 2. There were barbarians at the gate. All right, someone else give me number 16. I had to drop the kids off at the pool. All right, someone else give me number 34. I had to punish the porcelain. All right, 2 more. 54, I had to download some software. And finally, I will give you one of my favorites. I had to take the Browns to the Super Bowl. So I had to go. And I didn't know where the bathrooms were. I had no idea where the bathrooms were. Like, that's an important thing. Do you guys know where the bathrooms are? Yeah, all right, so, don't be embarrassed, for those of you that are new, to ask your counselor, where do I go to deposit at the bank? Right? I gave you options that you can ask without having to actually say any words. And I didn't know where they were. So I did what any 4th grader would do. I took off running. I just found a trail. I started running. I think, all right, maybe the bathrooms are down at the end of this trail. And I just took off. Left my counselors, you understand that. I just took off, right? And I ran, and I didn't get anywhere. I turned around and started to head back and lost my sense of the trail. Turned back around thinking I was heading back the right way, had no clue. Stopped completely in the middle of the trail, and at this point, the prairie dogs were out.
Prairie dog.
I looked at the woods, and I had not spent a lot of time outside in the woods before. And I thought, here's my salvation. I'm not telling you to do this. The woods were my salvation that day. And since that day, I have had a deep appreciation for nature. I've had a deep appreciation for nature. One of the things that I want to make sure you understand this week is how to hear from God outside. How to hear from God outside. Most of you, many of you are part of a church. You know how to sit through messages. Many of you brought your Bibles, I see. I mean, you're already sitting down listening to a sermon or a message, so you kind of know how to do that. Many of you know how to hear from God through friends. When they speak to you or they share things with you, and you tell them that you need just to talk to them. And, I mean, you know how to hear from God from friends, but how do you hear from God in this environment? And it's important for us to hear from God in this environment because many of us are so disconnected from nature that we don't even know how to hear from God in nature. Like it's not even a part of our listening. And if there's anything I want you to do this week, I want you to make sure to open your ears and to open your eyes to what God would say to you through nature, by what you see, by what you hear, and to be prepared to be able to hear from Him. When I was about 12 years old, me and some buddies were in the yard, and we decided to play a game. The game was see who could get to the backyard the fastest. Had a fairly large backyard. We were in the front yard. We were going to try to get into the backyard as fast as we can and get to our weeping willow tree out there. And whoever got there first won. But we wanted to make it challenging. So we decided we'd do it with our eyes closed. So I was standing next to my buddy, and we say, "Go." And he takes off running. Now, it hasn't occurred to me, it didn't occur to me until years later that his eyes were probably open. Mine were closed. I hear him running, and so I start to run. So we're running toward the backyard, and there's an incline before my house, so I was sure that before I came near the house, I would be able to feel that incline. My sister swears she heard the crack of my head hit that brick that day. As I smashed my face against the wall, fell backwards, stumbled inside with this part of my face bruised. And you know how you bruise that? You bruise that when everything else gets flat. Had to explain to my mother why I had a bruise here, because I was running with my eyes closed to play a game to beat my friend. I want your eyes open this week. I want your ears open this week to what God would actually say to you. Last March, a year ago, I was in India, coming from Bangladesh, where I try to go once a year, so we have many pastors over there that I'm connected with. I had spent at least a week in India, in a place called Calcutta, where Mother Teresa did her ministry, if you've ever heard of Mother Teresa. The Sisters of Mercy have their ministry there. Mother Teresa's gone on to be with the Lord. If you don't know who Mother Teresa is, she's a nun who ministered to the poorest of the poor in India most of her life, particularly people who were from the lowest class in India and those that had leprosy. She gave her whole life ministering to people that were sick. I got to go visit Mother Teresa's house and see her bedroom where she stayed, and the worn-out place on the floor where she knelt every day praying for the kids of the streets
that lived without families, lived in disease, lived in illness, crying out to God for these poor kids. And I'm in Calcutta when I hear the news that there is a sickness that's going around the world. We had started kind of hear that there's something coming out of China. And then I had heard that there's sickness in Seattle, because the guy that I was with was from Seattle. And then I heard that there's sickness in Detroit, which is where one of our friends was getting ready to head. So we got in an airplane, flew out, landed in Indianapolis around March 18th, when everything started to shut down. You remember that time? I knew it was different when the NBA canceled. I mean, as soon as I heard the NBA shut down, I remember watching owner of the Mavs, Cuban. I remember watching Cuban, seeing on his phone that the NBA season shut down. And I thought, this is different. This is different. I got our pastors on a Zoom call, on a video call, and said, hey, let's shut down our churches for 2 weeks. So this thing blows over. For 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, you all know because you lived it. Schools started to shut down. Schools went virtual. Some schools stayed hybrid, where you went to school or you and then came home and did school from home. Some parents pulled their kids from school. Some of you may have done that, where you were regularly involved in school, and then suddenly you're not there anymore. You lived through a summer of cancellation. Camps were canceled. Probably most of the sports were involved in were canceled. Events were canceled. Our city pool was shut down. Nobody could go there. We had no clue how long those things were going to go on. We entered into the fall. Some of you went back to school, face to face. Some of you were hybrid. Some of you stayed home. Some of you got sick. I know at least one young lady in here who got so sick. She was sick for weeks and still feels the results of having COVID. I hit February before I got it this year. I remember I was visiting pastors. We thought things were starting to lighten up a little bit. I was visiting pastors one by one, making sure that I was spending time with each one of them. And I woke up with kind of a drainage in my sinuses, more than you want to know. And I don't have a euphemism for that, but that's what was going on. And I spiked a fever. Went to the clinic. They said, sure, yes, you tested, you have COVID. I had to get back on the phone, call every pastor I had met with that previous day, including an entire board of administration, and tell them, listen, I exposed all of you to COVID. One pastor, Herb Coates, anybody from Madison Avenue? I gave your pastor COVID. They were sick for 10 days after that. About day 4 of not being able to get out of bed hardly, I couldn't pray, I couldn't read, all I could do was watch Netflix. And I watched 10 straight days of Netflix. And I had to start watching what I'm watching because I started to believe everything I was watching, right? So I love mystery shows, cop shows. And so I started to be the cop, and finally I said, I need to watch something a little nicer. About day 4, in the middle of the night, I woke up and I had this overwhelming smell of burnt hair or sulfur. And I heard pop. I went back to sleep. I woke up about, 30 minutes later, had this burning smell in my nose, heard a pop, woke up the next day, couldn't smell. It's the strangest thing anybody had. I just couldn't smell. I didn't have proper taste, but nothing tasted good. So it took weeks for that smell to come back. I tell you all of this because you have lived this for the last 15 months, and I would dare say this is one of the few times you have gotten fully together with people of faith your age to even process what you just went through. And I would encourage you, don't just wipe it off as if it hasn't happened. There's an old saying that goes like this: the body never lies. The body never lies. Stress, grief, loss, illness, sadness. Sometimes you don't recognize those in your brain, but your body knows. Your body knows. And I would encourage you to think that this week, dare you to think that God may say something to you this week about what you just went through, and maybe even what we're going to face coming up. And I don't want you to miss that opportunity, because what we just went through and what we're somewhat in is not normal. It's not. And we need to think about and process it and walk through with the Lord and grieve what we lost and celebrate what we learned. Because for many of us, it was like God just hit a big pause button and everything in our life just stopped. Which is great if you're my age and you want it to stop. But your age, no. Why would you want to stop stuff? So many things were taken from you. So many things were taken from us. That it's going to take some time to hear from the Lord about what it is that He wanted to teach you in the midst of it. And I became convinced in the middle of the pandemic of something that we had lost before the pandemic. I became convinced that we had lost the connection with God through nature and the natural rhythms that He's given to us in this earth. I mean, after all, illnesses are a part of this earth. Sicknesses are a part of this earth. Disease are a part of this earth. It's a part of the cycles of this world. And we've so tried to separate ourselves from nature and dirt and bugs and animals. We've tried to anesthetize, you know that word, right? We've tried to clean up our lives so much where we live that there's never any dirt, never any dust, never any outside coming in. But I know this, nature will find a way into your house. And guess what? That's of the Lord. It's of the Lord. Let me share with you some scriptures. Romans chapter 1, verse 20. Romans chapter 1, verse 20. I've got it on the screen, but I'm going to share with you the scriptures so that you can look them up if you want to highlight